honestly, I don't know if this is a bad outfit, but I love it. Hello, hello. Welcome to the first p+log. That's what the P stands for, haha. Welcome to another p+log. It's been a while since I've recorded and posted, and the reason is because of this. I have to, we'll be talking about this today, but it is because of this. So, YouTube Studio, I have not responded to Kappa. So I'm going to do that now. They don't know who I'm trying to target, who's my whatever audience. So we are obligated to do so. Here I am. Channel audience. Okay. So that's not helping at all. I'm here, yeah. Well, I'm just gonna take care of this. We'll be right back. Hi. So I figured it out. There's this blue banner that was like right there. Let me just show you so I can. Okay, discard changes, but please still show. Okay. See, there's this blue banner. Right, like that. So, I clicked on it, select channel settings, and I want to do that, but I wasn't able to do that through my phone, so the only way to let me upload through my phone is if I can pick one of these. And for now, yeah, it's just not for kids. That's fine. Save. Now I should be able to upload the video you'll be seeing today. Because I have recorded at least one before, but other than that, I have been offline. I've been just occupied with dad stuff. He had his 50th. I mean, I did share that in my previous p+logs, how I was working on stuff. But, yeah, I was working on my dad's stuff, and that made me pretty occupied emotionally too, because that's just life with my dad. But I wanted to talk about, obviously, mental health, and from the Christian perspective, I think that a lot of us like to, what's the word, push it down. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the word, but it's a word that describes for anything. We like to dismiss, yes, but suppress, that's the word. A lot of suppressing of what is actually happening in the mind or in the heart. And the truth is that we're in a fallen world. I don't know if you've heard that before, but we're in a fallen world. And that applies, yes, to our physical body, but even our mental body. It is not perfect, and that is because of the world we're in. One thing that brought this to my attention for me personally, in the last like few days, I guess you can say, because I've always known that mental health is serious. However, to what degree do I understand it? It would vary based on my understanding and maturity. So, for instance, there is a time where I would say people who go to counseling aren't trusting God enough. I would say people who rely on medicine don't trust God enough. I would believe that, that just going from mental health it's like, I don't know. I just didn't take it seriously. And I didn't think that, I thought it was, in a way, part of spiritual things, that if you're mentally disturbed, then it's because of your spirit life, your spiritual life. And that's incorrect. Um, and a reason I say that is because there are a lot of things that we cannot control, and our mind, as our body does, and we see that in our bodily effects. There are people who do actually get sick because of what happens in life, like physically. But then sometimes it's invisible and it's just in the mind. And when those things happen, they just aren't the same. They're a changed person. Some people who know me, and I don't know if they're seeing this video, but there are some people who may have known me before I went to Baylor, before I went to university. But after university, I may have been just a little bit different. I sound kind of like I'm covering up, but I mean, there are some things about me that were a little bit. Okay, my mom is saying we have to go, so we're gonna walk and talk. So when I was at Baylor, I went through a lot, as do a lot of people. However, you can only know as much about yourself that you will admit to those who are able to help you, like a counselor. And I did have a counselor, but at the time, I don't know if I was totally open with her. I mean, I thought I was open with her. But again, actually what I want to talk about today, what was kind of referenced in the beginning, was ambiguous loss, which did not happen until after I left Baylor, because it was when I left someone who I met at Baylor. But the situation of me wanting to take it to someone who's a professional, I did not see the seriousness of it, and that has led to just a lot of bad thoughts, bad behavior, bad decisions. And not necessarily because it's like bad, like, whoa, you're hurting people, but unintentionally I'll be making decisions that aren't good. Unintentionally I'm doing things that I wouldn't want to do to someone if I knew what it was, if I knew that it was a bad thing, but I saw it as normal. So like, toxic behaviors are normalized. That's a symptom of just not being in the right state. And that's what happens to me, as does anyone who goes through some sort of change. The only difference is, do you do something about it? Do you seek help? And I just thought the whole time that I was being misunderstood, if people would say that there's something up with me, and I didn't like to take that kind of word. I was like, no, y'all aren't really understanding me and everything. But now I'm at a place where I want to be better, and I want to treat people better, and I don't want to inflict pain, inflict hurt that I've had just because of how the pain and inflictions I've had from somebody else happens to me when it did happen, you know? It's like, you want to stop the bleeding somewhere, and that is something that as Christians we do value, which is, you know, not carrying generational curses. For some people who they'll use that to talk about alcoholism, but that can even happen in family relations, about a way of treating another person. For example, I'm going to say that I do have family who they don't really understand how to treat someone with love, with kindness, or they may think they are, but it's not. And it's not because they are doing it intentionally, but it's because that's what they've known. Like a way of correcting someone, or calling someone out on something, or just trying to give advice. They may do so in a way that they think is helpful, but their way of doing it does not translate to the person receiving. But they don't see that. So again, Christianity, we have this idea for breaking generational curses, for allowing Jesus to do everything, but we don't realize that the way we are as people, we can put ourselves in the way we do things instead of putting Jesus in it. And that's what is impressed upon people. And they're going to think that's Jesus, and they don't want any part of that, when in reality, that's not Jesus at all. An example, again, not family, but social media. There's this person who I have been following and been involved with on this group chat, and he's a Christian. But, sorry, this thing's not going to come any closer. And he's a Christian. But when it comes to how he was treating me or somebody else when he got upset, he got really mad and he started calling people names. He was saying, like, you're a hypocrite. He was being very down-putting, and little does he know, the opposite thing that he was trying to do, the opposite thing of what he was trying to do, which is witness to people about Jesus, by showing love, he's doing the opposite. He's showing hatred. And he doesn't mean to do that, but that was just what he felt comfortable doing. And so far, up till now, I mean, it's only been since last night, but up until now, there's no, like, connection. We're not talking. He's not responded to my message now, even though he's seen it. So he's just trying to figure it out, I guess. So I'm giving time with that. But there's just a lot of hurt that can be continued, even as we're saying we're doing this for Jesus, we're doing this for Jesus, or I want to love you like Jesus, but then we don't do it like Jesus. We do it with our own way of doing things. And it ends up hurting people still. Like, I can give an example again. I've been wanting to reconnect with people that I have been out of touch with because of me just trying to figure things out. A lot of friends from high school and even some friends from college. And when I say a lot, I just mean more than one person. It's probably been about like 2 or 3 people when it comes to high school, and like 2 or 3 people again when it comes to college. But there are people that I've said, yeah, I want to connect, I want us to hang out. But when it actually comes to wanting to do stuff, I don't feel motivated to go out. And it's because I just don't feel like adequate. Like, I don't know. And then I would also feel like, who knows that it's going to last. Anyways, I'm saying all these examples to say we can carry on hurt if we don't deal with the hurt that we do have. And it doesn't come by suppressing. It doesn't come by ignoring. It doesn't come by just saying, give it to God. I was on the phone with someone and she was sharing how she went to counseling for her stuff. Like, a lot of her emotional and mental baggage, as we all do, have baggage. And one thing that she was saying was that it really discourages her when people just say, give it to God, and they're not really hearing her. They're not understanding where she's coming from. And that's because we lack empathy. It's part of our disconnecting with people because we're not really connected with God. It's like being a dead branch. You can't give life to something when you don't have life in the beginning. So, anyways, I totally get what she was saying. Anyways, what brought me to think about all of this, as I said in the beginning, is from what I'm going through and what I'm realizing that I've been going through. And it's something called ambiguous loss. If you haven't heard of it, you can Google it. It is a pretty, I would say it's kind of new, or maybe it's just not something that's talked about a lot, but I think it'll definitely be something that is going to be said more of a buzzword, because something that has been a buzzword in these days is the word ghosted. And that is when someone kind of just disappears on you and they don't really give a notice. And that is the exact same, that is like a type of ambiguous loss. There's ambiguous loss because of the physical being gone and the person still the same but the physical is gone, or because the physical is there but the mental is gone. So we're not talking about the mental. That has to do with people who have some sort of mental thing going on, and that happens too. But I want to focus on the one that a lot of people may relate to when it comes to ghosting, because that's kind of what happens these days, especially with social media. People just get dropped whenever they don't feel like, or just because they can't carry on a relationship for some reason and they just don't feel like saying so. So ambiguous loss in the first type, where the physical is gone, but nothing has changed with that person, just that the physical is gone. At least nothing has changed that the other side knows of. Is they could be moving to a new place, immigration. They could be going somewhere for a short time, or for a time, like someone who's been sent on a mission for military, or for a child who goes to college. And then another one is just when they just disconnect and they just don't. It's basically when it's by choice. It's not because of circumstances. So when it comes to ghosting, it is type 1, where it has to do with the mental being the same or whatever, but it's the physical that's gone, it's absent. And there's no closure. That is something that happens in general for ambiguous loss, that there's no closure to losing that person. And the reason it's called ambiguous loss is because a normal loss is when someone has actually died and you've lost that person, and they may have been a big part of your life, but they can no longer be there and you can't say anything, and there's just no communication. Ambiguous loss is that same experience, except it wasn't because of death. And the reason I think it is hard for us to deal with ambiguous loss as people is because we want that closure. We want to have this feeling of knowing what's going on, and otherwise we'll feel like it's our fault. And that's kind of why with divorce, kid, they'll talk about how they think it's their fault. I personally never really identified with that, but it's very much possible, because there has been a lot of people in my life who may have gone in and out in some way or another, and I guess I just had to cope with it somehow, and I don't know how I did. But it definitely happened more so where it was like, I'm choosing these relationships, I'm intentional about them. One is about this boy, and he was the one I met in college. And he was a big part of a lot of the change that I've been going through. Like, as much as I had my change in Baylor for Christianity, yes, there was a lot of other changes, a lot of other things that came out because of this kid. And by the way, I call him kid because that's just how I call people. So don't try and overthink. But yeah, so with him, I really learned how to be just free. I learned how to be creative, or at least embrace it. And he was just a big part of my growth after my change, because when I had my change, I became really isolated. I felt like I couldn't really talk with people. No one really understood how significant my change was, I guess. Just want to bring this down a little bit. Okay. No one really understood how significant my change was. At least it didn't feel like they understood it. And I just was like, okay, I'll just be by myself, and I was fine with that. I can be kind of a loner person, which also could be a symptom that I've always kind of had this feeling of disconnecting with people. Anyways, with him, we could just talk about anything and we would really connect. He was very encouraging when I felt like I had no confidence, like a big testimony of that. And I don't want to make this the talking about this kid show. I want to talk about how ambiguous loss can happen with just something so small if it was someone else hearing the story, but for you it's huge. So anyways, an example is how I was preparing for my piano final, which in piano class I was currently kind of failing, probably had a D or something. And I was preparing my scales, and I was really nervous and everything, and he was really encouraging, and he was actually the only person I practiced in front of for that piano final. Like, no one else really did that for me. And then I go to the piano final the next day, And I got an A on it. And I texted him and I was like, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I don't know what I would have, like you really helped. And anyways, I felt like he was Jesus in my life. And that was something I did kind of communicate to him. And I don't know how, but he was a light in my life when I was feeling really alone. And when he suddenly disappeared for whatever reason, and I mean, I'll admit, I've tried to do some detective work, but I don't really know exactly because I haven't really heard much from him, except for maybe one other phone call where he said what was going on in his life. And he did say stuff like, yeah, I'm trying to get it to reading the Bible, and that was encouraging at a time. But again, we're still not in touch. And it was just like for the longest time, because it's been now 3 years. It's been 3 years going on 4, because it's 2020, and I met him in 2016. But, we got to really talk in 2017. So it's like 3 years going on 4. And I've been going on with that all this time. And even though, like, progressively I'm like, okay, I just can't really accept that he's here, and I can't wish that he would be here because that's not going to help. Because, reaching out doesn't do anything. He doesn't respond. Texting or posting stuff, he doesn't interact on social media there. So it's like, instead of expecting all this from him, I just need to let it go. And as much as I'd understand that, there would just be so many times where I'm reminded of him, and it would just be like, I wish he was here and stuff like that. But it's like that was the scar. That was the wound that wasn't healed due to not having closure and not really giving it to God. And I know that sounds frustrating, but it's like, you do have to give it to God, yes, but you again have to confront what happened. So today I'm going to be going to see a counselor, hopefully, and there will be some sort of healing happening, I'm sure. And I just hope that it encourages you, that you can feel free to share what you're struggling with, even if you think that it's nothing. And even if there's not a name for it, it's probably because not enough people have reported that they're going through this kind of loss or kind of pain because of what happened. And even though you may feel like no one's going to take it as legitimate, well, a lot of what is diagnosed nowadays for psychology is because there's been enough cases reported, and then they have to now do a case study. They have to investigate what this phenomena is. But if you keep it silent, then people won't know about it. And that's why a lot of mental health is stigmatized, and people think that they're either crazy or okay, and they don't want to be crazy, so they'll just pretend they're okay. And as Christians, we have to be honest with ourselves and be honest with God that He can heal us. But again, if you want healing now, like the way you if you're sick, you can go to a doctor. It's not against God to go to a doctor. So, yeah, I just encourage you to seek counseling. It is a form of seeing a doctor for your mind, because we're in a broken world, and you can only do so much about that, in this time. So, yeah, I just hope that encouraged you. Thank you for watching. Please share this with someone if you feel like they could have some encouragement about their story. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too insignificant. God can heal all wounds, but you have to want it. Okay, thank you. Bye.